This is Fantology.
You may have heard of us.
All right, what's up, Lantern Men? This is Steven, your host with Fantology Podcast. I'm my lifelong friend Ben here, and we're talking about the Greenbone Saga. Finally, I actually did a solo review of, I think, the whole series because I finished it, oh gosh, several months ago to maybe last year and loved it. Like, absolutely loved it. It's now in my top five series of all time, if you can believe that, Ben. But we have not actually like talked about the series. And so
Yeah.
finally, another Fantology member read one of the books. Ben, my favorite Fantology member, here to talk
Don't
about
let
it.
anybody else hear about this. Um, yeah, and we're only talking about the first book here, right? Not the whole
Yeah.
saga. Okay, yeah.
Jade City only.
Yeah. And I have to admit that um I was listening to an episode of Brandon Sanderson and Dan Wells podcast, and Dan Wells said that this was like his favorite book like ever right now. And
I think he
so,
said Jade War was his favorite, but
oh, Jay,
yeah,
okay,
go
but
ahead.
yeah. But I'm just gonna say that that was not enough to convince me to read it until I heard that you also liked it, Stephen. So there's some good
Yeah,
praise right there
my opinion carries more weight than Dan Wells. I mean, come on.
for sure.
No, I think I heard him say that as well, like before reading the series. And I thought he was just kind of trying to be, Reddit deep cut, right? Like, this is my favorite series ever, right? But
Yeah.
honestly, I could see how people really like, I really like the series. I could see how people would say that, like, this is their favorite series. It's got a lot of things that I really like. I will say Jade City, that they get better. I think each book
Okay.
is subsequently better than the next. And it really does help to keep on going and like see how the characters grow and how the story continues to progress. And it kind of becomes this like whole like beautiful thing by the end with all the characters.
That's really good. I'm glad to hear that because I would like not to give any like spoilers away for the review, but I was disappointed with how one-dimensional some of the characters seemed in this book. And and I thought that that was unfortunate because the setting and like everything surrounding the characters were super great and fleshed out and
Mm,
like amazing. So, but for me, I'm like such a character focused reader
yeah.
that was hard for me to get past. So I'm glad to hear that like that part of it gets better.
It's a series where a lot of time passes over the
Oh,
course
interesting.
of, and in Jade City especially is pretty, I don't know, like over the course of months, maybe if that, like it's pretty focused in, but the timeline does kind of start to stretch out later in the
Mm.
series. And so by the end, you've spent enough time with these characters where they really do feel like, they've changed quite a bit, and you've sat with them for long enough where they really feel like your friends almost,
Yeah.
albeit like magic bloodthirsty friends at times. But by the end, it was a series where I was like, I had a, I don't know what's the term for, like, I was really sad when it was over because I had this detachment from people that I had
Yeah, you had
really,
like a book hangover
come to
type thing.
love. Yeah, exactly. Right,
Yeah.
right. And the reason was the characters, like the characters were my favorite part of the series. So hopefully you can keep on going. That's what I
Yeah,
would
yeah.
say to like anyone who liked the first book but was like not loving it. I would say keep on going. Give it. There's a lot more to the
Okay.
series.
That's good. Yeah, I'm excited. I actually started listening to the second one like and kind of forced myself to stop because I knew that we would do this and didn't want to like get too far ahead of it. Like
Mm,
didn't want to allow myself to give spoilers or anything. So I am
nice,
excited to keep on reading it. Yeah.
nice, nice. Okay, so let's get into a little bit of like what the book is. We're not going to split it up into like purely non, well, I don't know. I guess we can. Before we get jumping into the plot too much, let's just talk about what it is for people who haven't read yet. So I it's kind of like a fantasy Godfather almost. It's two big crime families. It's in this fantasy setting of a kind of pseudo Japan-esque, but somewhat of modern times. I'd say what decade would you place this in? Like the 90s
No,
kind of
not the
level of
90s. No, I would say
okay,
it's more like steampunk for me. I would have said more like 1890, like 1870s, 1880s,
but they
I
have
think.
phones.
But
Don't they call each
they
other?
do have, yeah, they do have phones and they do have airplanes, right?
Yeah, and cars
Yeah.
and
Hmm. Well,
so
yeah.
it gave you that vibe, but the technology was further along.
Yeah, shoot. Yeah, you're making me kind of recontextualize this a little bit because a lot of it was that's actually interesting because I feel like it would be like a developing country in the 90s maybe. You know what I mean? Because you do have like
Mm,
these kind of more um I don't know, uh like historic sentiments that are surrounding the like characters and their like the way that their mode of operations. But I don't know. Yeah, so maybe
mm.
I live in Vegas, so maybe it was like the Vegas in the like 50s and 60s, you know, kind
Okay.
of like mob rule.
Okay. So
Yeah.
okay, you're trying to rectify like the mob families and the dynamics there with the more modern technology that
Right, because like we do get a sense that like the rest of the world is a lot more technologically advanced than
they
like
are. Yeah, a
the
little
people
bit,
that we're
yeah.
following, right? Um,
Mm,
and so yeah, I think that that's kind of why I was kind of placing it more in like a, you know, steampunk era
mm.
than a modern era.
Yeah. I think it makes sense a little bit for KCON because they recently had their big like rebellion uprising kind of liberty for the country really, and so like you said they haven't had a lot of time to modernize, and we're kind of in that sweet spot where a lot of things are changing rapidly.
Yeah. Yep. And like yes, they have phones, but they don't have cell phones, I don't think. Like they still have to be like back at home when somebody's calling them, you know?
Yeah, I don't remember if they do or not. That's I'm those details are fuzzy for me. So yeah, like any mistakes that we make, let us know. And if you want to point those out in the comments on YouTube, or if you want to chat with us about the book or anything else specifically, hop on Discord. Invites are in the episode description below. Just gonna plug that real quick. But okay, so it's this modernizing society. There is magic. The magic is in the form of this substance called jade, which are like jade gemstones, right? That
Yeah.
certain people can use. Only the Kekanese population has the ability to access this magic. And even with the magic, there are some restrictions. There's dependency on it that can happen. There's some negative things that we'll see and chat about. But the magic itself is almost like, I mean, there's a few specific things that they can do with it, but it's essentially it's kind of a generic like superhero powers. Like if you think, like what can a superhero do? Like they're super strong and fast, and
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's
And
some
there's also
sensing abilities to
some
it.
sensing and also like deflection abilities. I'm not
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah, so a little bit yeah, more
I think
wider
there's like
reaching abilities.
4 or 5 separate things that they talk about, like that Andon is tested on in school. I don't remember what all
Yeah.
those things are, but Andon's one of the characters, and he specifically is really good at like the sensing and kind of more mystical side of using the magic.
Yeah. Yep. Before I guess before we get too far along into the actual plot, what other books would you like compare this to, do you think?
Song of Ice and Fire,
Oh, really?
very
That
very different settings, right?
yeah.
But the family dynamic and the grayness of the characters and a lot of the twisting and turning that happens and some like big character deaths and
Yeah.
changes and just like the drama aspect of it is very much very, very similar.
That's awesome. I maybe there's just like uh just a comparison, and probably not, maybe not a good comparison because they're both like based on Eastern philosophies. But like, what about Poppy War? Would you
I think there's
the
a little bit just in the setting sense and the way that they're both alternative
histories?
histories, like
Yeah.
really firmly based on like real Earth history, but like let's say that we're living in this fantasy type of thing and we still have the Western and Eastern cultures and they're very much like similar types of cultures.
And I feel like a similar level of like grit and kind of
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
uh
same
yeah.
vibe. Poppy War is pretty dark. I mean,
Yeah.
it
Well,
deals more with like some extermination war stuff that have like there's very dark things that happen
yeah.
there. And
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, Greenbone like more of like more like the Penguin level of
Okay,
the
so
mob
more like
violence if
isolated.
you're
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, right.
Okay. I like
I
it.
mean, it does become a larger conflict, but most of like the action is still mob type of things happening.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So okay, so that's good to know kind of going into. I didn't really know. I could very easily imagine the first and second book kind of dealing with the more localized drama, and then like the third book branching out into a more like
Hmm.
world consuming drama, but I have no idea where this is going. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's something we see a lot with trilogies, right, where they like slowly introduce like each book introduces a larger element, the plot becomes bigger
yeah.
and bigger. And I mean I don't want to say spoilers, but I mean I think that's certainly a reasonable assumption to make at this point, having read one book. Yeah.
Okay, cool, cool. All right. Yeah, sounds good. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. So yeah, if you like the Poppy War, if you like A Song of Ice and Fire, then this book's probably for you.
Yeah. Take the drama and character, the deep characters and family dynamics of Song of Ice and Fire, put it into somewhat modern Japan, fantasy Japan, and make all the family be part of two rival gangs. And there
There
you
you
are.
go. Awesome.
Yeah. No dragons though. Sorry.
Yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, let's talk about the book, but get into more of the plot elements. So spoilers. Okay. Happening now. Give you a second there to hop off if you haven't read yet. Okay, so I listed out the characters, a few plot points, etc. What do you want to talk about first? Like, what was the thing that really kind of, yeah, I mean, you had some things you liked, some things you didn't like as much. What's a good talking point?
Yeah, so I think that I got frustrated because it felt like so many of the characters kind of stayed in their same like lane that they started in. I felt like Andon was the only one that had the potential for some good, like some cool character and like growth and development. And then by the end, he kind of just like didn't develop that much. So that was kind of disappointing. Um, I don't know. Same with most of the characters, right? Like Shay, similar. Like she is kind of always having a hard time committing to the family, and like kind of always has one foot in, one foot out. Um, I don't know. What about you? I felt like, well, sorry, that's all I'll say for now.
Do you want to just maybe go through the characters
Yeah, we can go
and
through.
yeah, and it's gonna be I'm gonna do my best to only it's like talk Jade City where they're
Yes,
at.
I'll stop you if
Uh,
you start going
yeah,
beyond it.
yeah, we can talk about Lon first, which is easy because he dies. So uh, he's like
Yeah,
if to take the Song of Ice and Fire analogy further, he's like the Ned Stark character of this book.
yeah. Which I don't know how. To me, it did feel like two separate books. Like one after Lon's death and one before it. You know?
I think that's fair, especially since it happened about halfway through.
Yeah, and I just I don't know. Of course I think everybody feels like a little frustrated at in like moments like that where you're like I invested like some time and attention into like learning this character, and then he's just gone. You know what I mean? So that
Mm.
obviously is probably the intended effect of a shocking character death like that.
So you were
And
surprised that he was offed so soon because he
yeah,
seemed it seemed like his arc was not over.
right. It seemed like his arc wasn't over. It seemed like he had just kind of stepped into the fray with like doing the like duel. It seemed like he was had like a challenge that he was being given to overcome, and that you're excited to kind of like do that with him.
Mm.
Um, and so whenever like a character, it's kind of like the like Sanderson's rule of surprising yet inevitable, where it maybe was surprising, but was it inevitable? I don't know. And do you even need it to be inevitable if it's like aiming to be like a little bit more of a grittier world where things just happen? Um,
Mhm.
I don't know. So that's kind of where I'm at with his death.
I remember being pretty surprised that he died as well, because he's a likable guy, and like you said, he's given this challenge. Now we're kind of along with him for the SN1 shine thing that he's using, and he needs to be strong to be the pillar for his family, and the Mountain Clan is coming in, and we're like, okay, we're gonna do it with you, and then he just kind of dies, and it's kind of this almost like accidental death, and this street urchin kid is kind of responsible for it, and it's just kind of
Yeah.
this weird circumstances. And yeah, I can see where you might be like, what the heck? Like this guy is dead now. I
Yeah.
think the way that this was done was he, he set up. I mean, his death is really used to be a catalyst for everyone else to then have to deal with this. And it becomes, it kicks off the big conflict with the Mountain and the No Peak. And previously it seemed inevitable that they were going to go after each other, but like this was the thing. And then from there, it just kind of, it gets all the momentum going because, like you said, the first half of the book, not that much happens. And then the second half of the book, a lot happens. And this is just like
Yeah.
the wave of momentum that's going to like keep the whole series going.
Yeah, which is good. And I kind of like I do like how everything's based off this like really mishap of um yeah, like you said, kind of almost an accidental death, but though not really. I feel like it kind of does paint this picture of um you know things happening like you can't claim innocence if there's like widespread violence that you like kind of condone, and because you're kind of like uh you know you're you have to assume that stuff like that is going to happen, right? Um there's to make it like kind of bring up a weird analogy, probably because I'm in law school library right now. There's this thing called the felony murder rule, where it's like
Okay.
if you're committing a felony, like robbing a bank, but you don't plan on killing anybody, but like say you're like threatening somebody with a gun and they have a heart attack because you're threatening them with a gun and they die, like you murdered them, right? Even though that wasn't your intent.
Mm.
A murder, like a death happened while you're committing a felony because you're committing that felony. And so I feel like similarly that happened, right? Like the oh, what's the name of the other family? Not the Call family, but the
Mata, uh, or Ait family.
yeah, like they weren't
Is
necessarily planning on killing
that? I
Lon.
mean, the Mountain Clan. Are they all
Yeah,
it's the Ait family, right? Like Ait Mata is the
yeah,
mountain pillar. Yeah.
yeah. So the
Okay.
Mountain Clan wasn't planning on killing Lon, but they were planning on like shooting up the little like I don't know hostel that he was staying at or whatever. Um,
Yeah, where did that go down? Was that at that restaurant that they always go back to? Is that where
it
that
wasn't at the
happened?
restaurant. It was the I don't know, for lack of a better term, massage parlor that he would frequent.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and so they kind of paid the what's his name, the street urchin guy, kid.
Baru.
Yeah, they didn't pay him. They said that this was a way that he could earn some jade, was if he
Okay.
goes and shoots up. He kind of realizes that, oh, their plan must be for us to like take him out, and not just shoot up this building. And so when he sees them like driving, when he sees Lon driving away in his fancy car, he's like, let's follow him, and that kind
Mm.
of sets so so it's even though um the Mountain Clan might not have been aiming to start the war this way. or even Star Wars in general.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they have to assume that, they're out there shooting up buildings, like stuff could happen because of that. You know what I mean?
Mm. Yeah, they definitely, that wasn't Aimata's plan. I think she was trying to more take out Hilo because Hilo was the hothead and really would have caused problems. She would have preferred a more strategic like takeover of the No Peak clan, and doesn't want to cause like too much visceral, or what's the word? Not visceral. She doesn't want to damage the populace too much.
She doesn't want to damage the populace. And I think she also sees the Call family as like they could become allies if they're able to like go on the same page and kind of like,
Mm.
I don't know if she even really wants to take him over. It's just we want to, all get on the same bandwagon, and she knows that that probably won't happen if Hilo's around, you know. But but again, it goes back to the fact that it's a fool's errand to try and control. Like you have to know if you're like engaging in mob violence that you're not going to be able to control the variables, you know?
Yeah, 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 for sure.
So
I mentioned Aimata. You don't get to see her a ton in the first book, right?
no, you pretty much
Just a
only
couple
see her.
scenes.
Yeah, like you learn her backstory of how she like assassinated some of her family members to kind of become like in
Hmm.
charge. And then you also see her briefly at the negotiating table for a while. And I think that
And
those
then
are the
when
only.
she tries to basically convince Shay to go against her family, right?
Yeah, right. I think that, yep, yep, for sure. That happens like right around the whole negotiating
Hmm.
standpoint.
Yeah. She's she's a good character. I think she's kind of a fan favorite in terms of like just yeah, just a really cool character. Yeah, I guess you'll see her more. But yeah, with one book only, it's kind of I don't know if you've really formed an opinion on her yet.
No, yeah, for me, she's kind of like the boogeyman right now. Like
Mm.
she seems like she is um like has it all figured out, and then like you see it like this chink in her armor, right, where they end up kind of fighting back at the last moment and end up with some
Hmm.
semblance of victory. So yeah, it's hard to know kind of how uh what her like power level is, so to speak.
Yeah, the relationships, like kind of rivalry between her and Shay throughout the series is quite good.
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't really thought of them as like foils of each other.
I don't know if I'd say foils, but there's just enough kind of like recurring back and forth, and there are some really interesting decisions that happen later on. But I
Yeah.
guess you'll
This
you'll
whole
get
thing is
you'll
turning into a
a
teaser
big
for the
tease. Yeah, it is. It's just a
the
big
future
tease where
books.
I'm like, the future books are awesome. Okay, let's talk about Hilo. Hilo
Yeah,
takes over after Lon dies, and throughout this book, he's kind of just like the young, hot-headed ruler. He's very young. He's like, is he supposed to be still in his teens in this
no, I don't
book,
think
or
so.
young
Because
young
he's
20s?
graduated from the academy, right? Like
Okay,
how
so
old's
young.
Andon? I thought
Okay,
Andon was like in his late teens.
we'll say Andon's late teens, but Hilo's early to mid 20s at the oldest, right?
Yeah, I would say mid 20s. I thought of him as like 25, 26, because
Okay,
he graduated from the academy like long enough ago that it wasn't like he just graduated. You know what I
right.
mean?
And he's kind of like I've been reading Stormlight, so Hilo's kind of like a combination of a young Dalinar, but also like an Adolin, where he's really
Yeah.
popular general with his men, and everyone knows him and loves him because he's super charismatic, kind of like how Adolin is. But he's
Yeah.
also like a Dalinar where he's just like brutal and hot-headed, and I guess I'm kind of spoiling some of Oathbringer. But the
Eh,
Blackthorn, the
yeah.
Blackthorn Dalinar side of things is, I guess, is all we'll say.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Which is an um interesting character for sure, because he does like you see him in one of the first scenes, right, where he lets Baru, am I saying that right?
The
uh
Beru, the street urchin
Beru.
kid.
Yeah, he like lets them live, and takes them to his brother, and but then he's like, wait, you're not gonna just kill him? You know what I mean? Like, so you do kind of see that like different sides of him. It's like, oh wow, he didn't just kill these people. He must be good. And then like he takes him
Hmm.
to his brother, and he like second guesses his decision to like let him go. So and it is kind of like the difference of what's needed for like a peacetime leader versus a wartime leader. Like Lon might have been a great peacetime leader, but
Mm.
like you know you could need a Elo for like a wartime leader too.
Mm. Yeah. Hilo, were you frustrated that did he feel like a character that didn't grow throughout this book?
Um, yes, because of his like treatment of Andon at the end, because like
Mm.
the way they can't understand Shay, like her decision to leave, and the way that they always butt heads, and it's almost like he's like, "Oh, I've forgiven you, but don't make me remember what I forgave you for," or what, like that aspect. It never seems like he makes any attempt to grow past that aspect of himself, which I think is probably his greatest character flaw. And it just seems like he's completely unwilling to like examine that part of himself.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
and
He's
yeah,
all about the family. Anything against the family, like he can't, it's unconscionable that any of his family members would do something that is not in the best interest of the family unit. And right, so
yeah,
when Ann at the end is like, I'm not going to do this, Hilo's like, what? How could you not? Because you just showed us what great potential you have and how much you could
yeah,
help me. Like, how could you, right? And so
yeah,
immediately he just lashes out at everything that doesn't go his way and go the family's way.
yeah, which is I think fair, but like it's also a frustrating character to read. You know what I mean? Because you're like, okay, like clearly these other sympathetic characters have their own like independent, wants and desires and stuff, you know. Especially it was like a little bit like less, it was a little bit more annoying when it wasn't like in the wartime when he's just like, you know, holding these things over Shay's head.
Mm,
Because it's like, okay, in peacetime, like why can't you accept that somebody might not want to live the way that you're living? In wartime, I
gotcha.
could see like rally the forces and, like I don't know.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with him. But it's also frustrating character because he just has like one like mode, you know what I mean? It's just full force ahead with him. There's no stopping to consider like there's he has like a hard time really caring about the, like whole economics of like what Shay's discovered. He has a hard time like following through on their negotiations at the negotiate like in the negotiating scenes.
Mm.
So all of those aspects of his character are also frustrating.
So I'll say the potential for his growth as a character is now he's in this position where if he's going to succeed, if the family is going to succeed, he needs to get past this, right? Like he can't continue to just be this 100% full throttle hothead character. He's the pillar, he's not the horn anymore. So he needs to make use of Shay. He needs to you know, consider other ways of thinking, and I guess we'll see how he does.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so I guess if I picture like the first book as like a jumping off point, then it makes me like enjoy it a lot more. If I picture the first book as like um a complete thing that's like supposed to represent character growth and development, then I have a bit harder time with it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, you want to have a good character arc within a book, but you also want to have a good character arc within a series. And so, yeah, maybe in Jade City, like there's not a super awesome character arc within the book for most or some of the characters. I'm not gonna fight you on that. I think maybe that was sacrificed in favor of a more series wide arc.
And I think the problem is it's not exactly clear like exactly what they're fighting towards in the beginning. Like, or I guess throughout the whole book, they're just kind of, or I guess after Lana's death, they're kind of fighting for survival, which I suppose doesn't give you much room for really sincere character development because you're just kind of, trying to survive.
Mm.
Um, and so I will give you that. Like, but I think there's no real goal that the characters are trying to achieve apart from just trying to push back against the Mountain Clan's like
Mm.
domination of them,
Kind
and
of seems like they don't have a ton of agency because they're really just uh, always reactionary rather than trying to do their own things.
right. And that's kind of what's frustrating about Hilo is he does have kind of this trump card of what Shay discovered that he can maybe use strategically to convince like the I don't know what the alliance or I don't know what they call that.
The KJA, like
Yeah.
the K-Con Jade Alliance, is that what it stands for? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like where he can kind of use that to maybe their advantage and then he just kind of lets it slip like halfway through. Um and so, I don't know. That's I think where my frustration just kind of came to a head with his character.
Mm. I guess hopefully now that they've gained a little bit of a victory here at the end of the book, hopefully going forward, they're put in a position where maybe the two clans are on a little more equal footing and there's room for both to maneuver and try their different schemes and see who's going to come out on top and counter each other rather than one just like put on the throat of the other one.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that I'm excited about like the direction it's going for sure.
Shay herself, Shay is a character that I like quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I don't think how much do they go into her backstory? Like they just kind of explain that she ran off
Yeah.
previously.
Uh
But does it spend a lot of time in that or no?
you do kind of get the sense that her and Hilo were kind of childhood rivals a little bit. I think they kind of spent some time talking about that.
Okay.
But not too much. There's some comments about like, oh, they would fight, but because like they didn't have Jade, they couldn't really hurt each other that bad. But then like once they both got Jade, then it was like they had some like moments where they could have really hurt each other. And um I think she was also was she like the favorite or something? I don't know. I think that um maybe Hilo was kind of annoyed because she was the favorite of of their father
Yeah, does
or the
right,
grand
right.
yeah grandfather father
So their grandfather was called Sen. He was the one who was like they call him the torch of Keikon. Like
yeah
him and the old leader of the Mountain Clan were the ones who together, joined forces and got their independence. Their father, yeah, he died like early on. I don't remember what I have no memory of what happened with him. Okay.
uh yeah we
We'll
can
just assume that, yeah, we'll pass on that. Let us know if we're missing anything important there. I mean, I don't remember that being too important other than just like that was that's the backstory of the family.
yeah
But yeah, so
um
Shay in this book, she once Lon dies, then she puts on Jade again, and we kind of see what she's capable of, and then she becomes the weatherman, and she's really just trying to catch up after being gone for all these years. But you see that she is she's very smart, and she has a lot of potential here, but she's also young, and she's trying to maneuver against Aitmata and the Mountain Clan. It's a very formidable adversary.
yeah yeah I do like I think her strongest scene was when she was talking with oh what's her name with Wen um
Yeah.
and they're kind of conniving to figure out how she can smuggle or like get messages across the
Uh-huh.
border, right?
Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah, I think that kind of shows her ability to kind of outmaneuver and be like a little bit ruthless and maybe go against Hilo's interests a little bit, but like in service to the family. I think that there's a lot of that was probably my favorite scene with her. Um, yeah,
And they do that behind Hilo's back, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, which you know that's gonna blow up at some point. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah. Wen is a cool character. I don't think she does a whole lot in this book either, right?
no, she doesn't do a whole lot. I mean, she apart from maybe showing off some more unlikable aspects of Hilo, where he's kind of like overprotective and um,
Mm.
not able to see her as anything other than what he perceives her as. Um, th she doesn't do too much. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This is another one where I say
Yep.
there's interesting
There's things that
things
happen.
in the future. But yeah, yeah, you're right. In this book, when yeah, there's really just that little scheme that her and Shay have going.
Yeah.
Andin.
Yeah. Again, Anna was shaping up to be one of my favorite characters. Um, the yeah.
So you don't think he changed because wasn't he kind of the whole time in school? He was like, I need to be a Greenbone so I can join the family and help out, and my idol Lon here, like I want to be just like him. And then he uses Jade and has this huge win, but then he's like, I'm not gonna do it. You don't. I mean, that seems like
The
some
thing is, though,
growth
is he
dynamic
always had the
character stuff.
fear of ending up like his mother, right?
Okay.
And so and I don't know if he is choosing not to wear jade because of that fear or because of like another because he was afraid of like what he would turn into if he did. I'm not sure, but like it did show him kind of giving into his worst fears, right? Like his inability to
Yeah.
really
Well,
process.
his mother and he knew that Lon was using Shine, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Lon died. He doesn't know exactly how, but I assume he suspects that had something to do with it. I don't actually remember.
No, he
But yeah,
does. He
like,
knew. Yeah,
okay.
I think he knows.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you're right. Like those two things were big for him to say, like, I'm really hesitant here to like fully embrace this.
So, but I guess your point was that he changed in the fact that like uh he forsook like his uh goals of becoming like a Greenbow and stuff. And I'm more saying like there were two um aspects that he was struggling with the whole time, and that he just kind of gave into one of those aspects of like the fear of the unknown and stuff. Like I
Hmm.
don't really see that as changing. It's just kind of continuing on one trajectory. Um, and choosing not to, I don't know, but also just seems like a super untenable thing for him to do. Like, if I mean, he can't really escape his heritage. He can't
Yeah.
escape his. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
right.
Like again,
Is Hilo
frustrating.
really gonna banish him forever? And is he really gonna choose not to use Jade ever again?
Yeah,
It
like
does.
come on.
It seems like none of this is really realistic, right?
Yeah, to like quote Taylor Swift, it seems like teenage petulance.
Hmm. Yeah. To quote Taylor,
Yes.
Taylor has a quote for everything. I was talking to my one of my sisters about this. She has so many lyrics in all her songs that
I
could
mean, yeah,
literally quote anything at this point.
the Brandon Sanderson of the music world.
Yes, exactly. So many words. Okay, other things, I guess Doru is he's a big part of this book, and they eventually discover that he was betraying them, and
Yeah, that
they
was
keep him
cool.
around to like help the grandfather out in his old age, and then he ditches them and just like joins the mountain clan.
Yeah, and that was a big like kind of big fail for Shay for sure. And you do kind of
Mhm.
see
Because she could
um
have killed him, right? But she didn't.
well, Hilo was like saying, yeah, I mean, he's a traitor. We got to kill him, right? Like, that's how we do things, you know? And I think Shay was more like, well, you know, like, let's be merciful. Let's like keep him around to help grandfather out, you know? We can
Hmm.
be reasonable people. We can, you know, we don't have to give into this baser level of like warfare, you know? And so,
Hmm.
yeah, you kind of see how it,
Kind of a reality check for her.
yeah, for sure.
Does he explain, does like Doru ever explain what he's doing? Like why he betrayed them, why he would help the mountain at this point?
Yeah, well, from my understanding, it is because he kind of understood what Sen, like what the initial alliance was kind of like, we don't want, we want, we understand that alliance is in the best interest of everybody, and we want this people to thrive, and um, and so he was, I think, interpreting the spirit of that to mean like let's take that one step further and import the shine and kind of not let the industrialization and the technology pass us by. And so it seems like the Mountain Clan is much more on board with that. So I'm going to have kind of
Okay.
like a backdoor alliance with them. That's kind of what
Yeah.
I understood from his like
Yeah,
his.
no, that is what's going on with him. I just wasn't sure if that was in this book or not. So yeah, he decides that going against the family is justifiable in this case because the initial spirit of like everything they're trying to do for KCON
Yeah,
is more with the mountain at this point.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So definitely for sure an interesting turn of events there, especially with Carlson kind of betraying and like helping him escape and stuff. That was pretty crazy.
And he's on the run. And at the end of the book, he like sends Shay a letter. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, a lot of loose threads here. What is Andon going to do? What is
Mhm.
Hilo going to do as far as like his honestly, what is Hilo going to do if, in every direction? But he's got all of these relationships that are kind of, I guess, in needs of advancement. Like Andon is, uh, he's got to figure out how he's going to deal with him. He's got to figure out his relationship with Shay, how they're going to collaborate together. He marries. Does he marry when? Are they just like engaged?
I think they I think that they're just engaged. No, well
Yeah, I think.
he gets the blessing from,
Okay.
does he get Carlson's blessing before he dies? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember
Yeah.
what happens there. Okay, so, but he's got, yeah, it seems like he's solidified things with Wen, but
Yeah.
Wen is also going behind his back with Shay in,
Yeah.
like you said, a way that doesn't really seem sustainable. And he's got just this like whole bureaucracy of people in the mountain in the No Peak clan, sorry, that he's got to manage. He doesn't really have the skills to do it super well, and the Mountain Clan is still a big threat, even though they were able to take out Gaunt. Right, Gaunt was the horn of the mountain, if I'm remembering
Yeah.
right. And so, yeah, so they do get this victory at the end, and I think that was, that's set up. Isn't that like action at the end pretty good, where
Yeah.
they don't
It
really
was
like
good.
tell you exactly what's. It's kind of like the secret plan that Andin and Hilo have, and then it's revealed. I thought that was like well done by Fonda Lee.
No, it is well done. It kind of, I remember having this debate about one of the books of the Pierce Brown of Red Rising, where it's like, how do you balance the protect like the main characters that you've been following, setting up a secret plan that you don't know about, and like how
Oh
realistic
yeah.
is that really? You know, it's kind of, it does that strike that balance because it is like surprising when it's happening, but at the same time, you kind of feel betrayed as a reader that you're like, I should be in on this. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Um, I can
Well,
get duped by the mountain,
Red
but
Rising, especially because it's first person, that one has,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's
And
harder.
that's kind of why I was a little bit less like, I think a little bit more of a debate in Red Rising. This, I'm just saying, it like reminded me of it, but I wouldn't say it's as much of a
Mm.
um yeah, I would say it's as much of a issue.
Gotcha. And then what else? I guess we didn't talk about we talked about Beru a little bit. What did you think about Beru? He has like three viewpoints throughout the book, right? The first one in the first chapter, and then halfway through when Lon dies, and then at the very end. Like
Well,
it's
he
a
does a
little
few,
or
yeah.
does he have more than that? I just remember like those
He has
three
a
main
he has
things.
like the three arcs, right? But he does have this. He has a few scenes where like he finds like a big stash of SN1. He starts
Okay.
taking it. He starts like uh uh crap. Maybe is this the first few? I don't want to give away from like the first like I'm like 20% of the way through the second book, and maybe I'm remembering a scene from that. But I know for a fact that like in the first book he discovers the big stash of SN1 from the like in the shop of the person that like asked him
Hmm.
to
Yeah,
assassinate.
and the guy that
Yeah.
like smuggles him out afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And the guy's kid, they like have like
Hmm.
a nice and they also crap, never mind. I don't want to give any spoilers away.
Right. The end of the
Okay, so
book with him is where he's just like looking at Lon's grave, contemplating how there's Jade buried down there that he could get
yeah,
to.
yeah,
Anyway, did you enjoy the insertion? Because like I honestly don't know how I feel about the whole Beru part because he continues
yeah.
to be a character and he's just kind of like inserted every now and then. And
It
the
is,
rest of the book is
yeah.
like very defined with like, okay, this is the Call family. These are all your characters that we kind of know pretty well. And then every now and then there's like, oh, also there's this like random kid who's doing stuff.
Yeah, that it is interesting because I feel like this book is just perfectly balanced right now with enough threads that you can be expected to like hang on to as a reader, you know what I mean,
Mhm.
without feeling like you're having to like do homework while reading the book, you know?
Uh-huh.
And I think Beru might be like the one thread that tips it over the edge, you know, where you're like, oh crap, like what's this all other plot line that doesn't relate to anything. But the way that was weaved in, at least in the first story, was cool in the fact that like you start with them and you have kind of this like poetic injustice of how the fact that he ends up being the one to cause Lon's death. And so
Hmm.
at least in the first book, his thread is like woven in tightly enough that I appreciated it, but it does kind of give you a sense that you could like lose track of some characters in this book.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like in there to give you a different viewpoint and a little different access to parts of the
You see what's happening with
characters
the
or
common
plot.
folk?
Yeah, yeah, right.
Yeah.
You see stuff that the Call family is just not gonna see. So
Uh-huh.
it helps out, like gives Fonda Lee more flexibility in what she can show and like kind of convey in different ways. But I don't know. It's just like he's so different from everything else. It kind of like I don't want to say it seems sloppy, but it just seems like it's not nearly as tightly woven as the
Yeah.
rest of what's going on. So I never knew like the whole time through the series. I honestly like this is probably the thing that I would say is the weakest part of the series, just like this Beru thing. I
It's
I don't
interesting
know
because
how else you would do
yeah.
it, but it's
Well,
just not quite
if
as
you're like
yeah.
Joe Abercrombie, you just have like random characters that end up having one scene and then
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
killed
yeah.
by some
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah.
just have some like little people chapters and that gets it done. But that's a totally I don't know. That's a different he can get away with that.
Yeah.
Just I don't know. He gets away with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I'll have to figure out how he does that.
Yeah. Is that I think that kind of takes us up through like all the main characters and through most of the plot points, right?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good wrap for Jade City. And I'm excited for you to keep on going. I'm glad that even though you were kind of like average, it sounds like for this book that I've managed to convince you hopefully to keep on going through the rest because I do think they get better each one.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'll keep on going. And I'm excited to review the next couple with you. Hopefully we can
Nice.
convince one of one of Jake, Josh, or Ryan to read these with us. I'm
Yeah,
surprised
tell
Ryan
them.
has it. This seems right up Ryan's alley.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think Josh and Jake would also like them. I've tried. They, unlike you, they are not my favorite Fantology members.
That's
So,
right.
no.
I
All
can be
right.
your
If
Andon.
Yeah. If you want to hear more from us or chat with our little community, you can join our Discord. The invite links are on the episode description below. And until next time, we'll see you later.
So.